Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Talk About It with SABIA KHATUN today. Oh my goodness, where do I start? Where do I begin today? First of all, how is everyone? And it's results day, not only for GCSEs, but A-levels. Right, before I introduce you to my guest, I just want to say that I'm sure you've all had some sort of cry, but I hope it was for joy, not anything else. Okay, so I'm actually super excited today. I have two wonderful people on the show today, and I will actually take you over to them right now because I can't sit on my seat for still for too long. Okay, so I have with me today, I have got Anisah Rahman, who is our GCSE student who received her results today. Well, she actually didn't receive, she went to the school to go and get it, and I don't blame her. So please, everyone, welcome Anisah on the show. Hello, Anisah.
Hi.
Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I'm super excited.
Great. And I also have Kacy-Leigh Jasper, our A-level student. It's as if the pandemic wasn't enough, Kacy, but to stress you for another week. 1 week ago you receive one result, and then a week later you get told something else, which we will talk about. But everyone, please welcome Kacy-Leigh Jasper. Hi, Kacy.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Kacy, hello. Welcome to my show, Kacy.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Kacy, can you hear me? Okay, I think we'll come back to Kacy. I'm not sure why we can't hear. But yes, so Kacy is our A-level student. We have yet to find out from the girls what they achieved. They have kindly come on board to share with us here at Vodcasts, with the viewers, their experience of the whole system of and everything that went about it. So I will actually ask Anisah. Anisah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Great. So Anisah, if I could ask you kindly, if you would share your grades with us, how you actually went about to receive your grades, and were they the results that you hoped for?
Yeah.
So over to you.
Thank you. So I actually got 2 grade 9s and 7 grade 8s and 1 grade 7 and 1 grade 6.
Okay. Woohoo! Can we say woohoo? Well done. Great. Brilliant. Okay. What does that mean in equivalent to, I mean, I go back 2-3 decades ago when we received our GCSE results. I did do GCSEs, but we were graded in A's, A to C, A's and B. So just for the viewers, what do those grades mean, that the numbers?
So grades 8 and 9 are equivalent to an A star, and grade 7 is equivalent to an A. And then we have grade 6, which is equivalent to a B, essentially. And then the grades below are grades 5 and 4. So there's a strong pass and a standard pass, which are more of your C's. So, yeah.
Okay, excellent. How did you go about to receive? Did you wait for it to come in an email to you? I mean, just share your experience of today before we go into depth of anything else that we are going to cover. So, did you receive it in a post? What did you do? How did you get your results?
It was really weird because I was expecting to receive it by email, and then there was a sort of a delay by email. So I hadn't exactly known that there was going to be a delay. So I remember I was like, I really woke up early, just sort of waiting for an email to come. And I was just like, ooh, I was just like really tense waiting for that email. I kept checking back like every 10 minutes or so. And then I was told to come in. So essentially I got to actually find out my results once I came to school. And so I got to sort of have my own sort of reaction, but fortunately couldn't react with my parents because adults weren't allowed to come into the school. So just students. So it was a very weird one because even though I was like quite close with my friends, we obviously still had to sort of follow strict social distancing guidelines. So it was kind of, I could only celebrate with one friend very close to me. But it was definitely a bit weirder, but it was still very cool. So I still
Well, so deep breath then. You took a deep breath. You had relief. Okay, your predicted grades. Okay, before we go on to that, Kacy, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Excellent. Okay. Okay, I'll come back to you, Anisah, again. If I could just welcome Kacy on Vodcast, and just want to say thank you for joining our show. So, hello, Kacy. If you could just briefly introduce yourself.
Hi. So I'm Kacy. I'm an A-level student. I just finished my A-levels. I got my results last week, and then again this week, because obviously the interchanging with off-call and everything that happened there was a bit manic.
Okay, yes, we will go into a little bit more about that, where I know you've got a lot you want to say and express, and you know, not only do you want to get things out there, you know, it's a voice for other students who may not have achieved and received what they would have liked, you know, purely because of this mess up of, you know, last week, you know, the A-level grades were being assessed and predicted, and you know, this algorithms. Did you feel it was downgraded or degraded?
100%. You know, this algorithm was completely flawed, and obviously there has been like overturning now, where they've allowed people to have their college appointed grades, which is great. You know, it should have happened a lot sooner, but even then, surpassing that, there's so many downgrades within colleges as well, like considering the area that people live in. So, you know, it's just all a big issue.
How did you feel at that time? You know, when it was announced by the government that, you know, this is how they will assess it, or this is how they'll predict it. How did you feel about it?
I think in the moment, I very vividly remember just the day where exams were cancelled. Very vividly remember, because I wasn't home. I was out on a run. It was all good. It was a great day, my daily exercise, and then I got a phone call saying exams were cancelled. And I remember like the instant shock. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I was like, okay, where do we go from here? Because, you know, our academic system, we have linear exams, you know. We didn't sit AS levels, we sat mocks. Mocks aren't taken seriously amongst students, realistically speaking, and mocks aren't standardized. So there is no accurate representation of me as a student, no matter how well or badly I had done historically in school. There is no sort of solid evidence of my capabilities, and so many other students across the country as well are in the same boat, and they held back information from us for so long, talking about, oh no, we're not cancelling them, we're just delaying them, we'll do them, but we'll do them later. And then it was, no, we're 100% cancelling them, but you're going to get your mock grades. So everyone was like, okay, but not everyone has sat mock exams. And then it was, you'll get your predicted grades, which was okay, yeah, but then that's unfair for some students who were over predicted and some students who were under predicted. And it was a continuous circle, which honestly just pointed out the flaws in the education system that we have.
Right. Okay. So it's as if like you weren't confused enough as it is, you know. And so, you know, a week later, 2 days before today's result day, what was going through your mind, Kacy?
Honestly, at that point, I was very thankful as to my university was very lenient. So even though I hadn't achieved the grades on results day that I would have necessarily needed if I'd sat the exams to get into my university said, listen, we'll still offer you a place. A lot of people still got offered a place at this university. It's Royal Holloway. And I was very at ease at that. But even then, when we found out that they'd changed it and now we were getting our like college appointed grades, there was still a sense of panic, because then universities had no idea what they were going to do. They didn't know if they were going to be retracting offers, and if they were, if they were going to have enough places for students. Even now, there's so many students who are missing out because they can't enroll because their places have already been enrolled to, like even now that people have everyone has their grades, there's still so many issues that need to be tackled.
Yeah. Coming back to Anisah, results that you've received, right? Again, going back a week, did you feel it was only downgrading or degrading? What did you feel? What was going through your mind at that time?
I remember when I first heard about the fact that we were going to be assessed by the algorithm, as I understood that the algorithm took into account our school's historic.
Yeah.
That was.
Anisah, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If we can, okay. Right. If we can go back to Kacy, I think, Anisah, if I can get you to check the reception. But Kacy, oh my goodness me, the grades U-turn. Right. So what were you predicted last week?
So it was very much a whole journey. So I was initially an Oxford applicant. I applied for Oxford. I was predicted A star AA. I'm good at school. I love school. I got good grades. And then when I turned up on results day, I received CCC grades. And this honestly made no sense to me. I would understand maybe not what I was initially predicted, considering my area, but how can a student drop from predicted A grades to a C grade? And I remember talking with my teacher, and it was just the conversation of, our school is in a deprived area. My school's in Newham. It's not it's not well funded. It's not well known, and historically we have a very poor academic record. It's always been the case. So I knew that due to precedent, I knew I was already going to be downgraded. But it was the idea that no one knew how severely they were going to be downgraded. There were students who were being dropped from C grades to U grades. And how can you explain giving a student an ungraded mark for an exam that they didn't sit? It made no sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me. And honestly, all it does is
so basically their lives are being told how it's going to be. The effect, the knock-on effect on these people. Being told that, this is how it's going to be done, without, the government, without even thinking that, hold on a minute, this is young people's lives. So, how did you feel at that time when you received those predictions?
I remember I was planning on opening my results at college. So I was going to meet up with some of my teachers and some of my friends, and we were going to open it together because we already knew it wasn't going to be good. And then I got a text from my university on the way to college that had already said, like, well done, congratulations, you still have your place, really proud of you, see you in September. And I was like, okay, no matter what I get now, I have a sense of relief, it's a weight lifted off my shoulders. And then I remember when I got there and I opened the grades, it was just honestly like, it was kind of heartbreaking at the time, because I knew I'd worked so hard, I really cared about my work. I revised a lot, so much stress and so many breakdowns over it, and only to then be left with CCC, which aren't bad grades realistically, they are grades that someone should be proud of, but they're not great. They're not my grades. I
No.
didn't sit the exam.
Well, you didn't sit the exam.
There's no precedent for this grade. It's an average of based off of what a couple of pieces of work. It doesn't make any sense. It's unstandardized across the country, and you've then downgraded me as a result of my college, when realistically this could have been your college's strongest cohort of students. It doesn't make any sense, And I had fellow students and friends who were receiving D grades who were also Oxbridge candidates. I had one friend who literally received straight D grades in all her subjects, and she'd never received anything lower than a B in any of her exams. It made no sense, and everyone was sort of in a complete state of confusion because no one knew what they could do. And so many of my friends and colleagues got taken away from university and rejected, and they're now sitting there even to this day and still don't have a university placement because of the effects of the algorithm. Oh
my goodness me. So your subjects that you have done, Kacy, we will come onto that. I just want to find out, Anisah, are we can you hear us? Are we okay?
So sorry, I just sort of changed devices.
That's fine. No, that's good. Okay, I'm glad I've got you back. We were just touching up on this algorithms. How in your view, how do you feel that the government did not sort of like see this coming, that it's not going to work? What do you feel, that how could this have been unforeseen? If you can tell us, about that.
To tell you the truth, I was really surprised that the government didn't see this coming. I was just thinking, was there no checks and balances? Because I know that the Education Secretary kept emphasizing the whole point of the standardization process was to actually, put checks and balances on our grade. It was kind of surprising that actually instead there seemed to be no checks and balances on this algorithm. There seemed to be no really independent parties working on this. It was just, for me, I was really surprised that they were able to use an algorithm that could actually take into account our school's past performance and actually compare us to those students and essentially give us the grades of those previous students, because it's not very fair when you think about it on schools that may be rapidly improving. It also really did disadvantage the particular areas, those who came from maybe certain postcodes that aren't maybe, as in the government's view, perhaps well off. So I was honestly really surprised that they didn't see this coming, and that they didn't really think about maybe consulting with like an equalities committee or something like that.
Right. So, okay. And how did it make you feel a week later that they do this U-turn? What was going through your mind at that time, considering? All I can say, I actually spoke with a couple of head teachers in schools. They weren't very happy. 2 days before the results day, they get told that now they have to predict the grades, 2-day notice. Number one, they have to rush, and my opinion here is, so is there going to be a quality prediction going on? 2 days notice. I beg to think what those teachers were going through, depending on how many students they have to do this, assessment and predictions for. Do you feel, Anisah, that, even though you've got those great grades, how was it fair on those teachers? Do you feel that, maybe they may have, not just for you, but maybe for other students, there could have been some under predictions or over predictions because of that time frame?
I definitely think, because I got to see quite a lot of people's results actually in my school today. And I definitely think under predictions might have also been common, because just in general, a lot of students were actually doing much more better in the sort of build up close to exams. That's when they were starting to definitely work on certain subjects a lot more harder and started trying to improve their grades, I guess, in those particular subjects just around that time. And then obviously with the whole coronavirus pandemic, it's sort of what it meant is for those students, I guess, is that all the progress from before that sort of time when they were really working hard. I think that's what sort of happened. I know for my example, like, I also thought one of my grades was more of an under prediction too, because I had seen in my predicted grades, for example, it was another grade, but then today when I did see it, one of those grades was an under prediction. Like, I could see that it wasn't exactly the grade I haven't really been achieving over these past 3 years, if that makes sense.
So do you feel, do you feel if you had taken the exam, you you would have got different grades,
Definitely.
that would have been your achievement?
Yeah, definitely. For one of them, so the one I was under predicted on was chemistry and Spanish. So for Spanish, I was usually around 2 marks away from a grade 9 or 3 marks away from a grade 9 in those mock exams. But it was because our school actually put higher grade boundaries in mocks to sort of reflect the real exam. Because if we did the exact same grade boundaries, what the school really predicted was that grade boundaries will increase year by year. So mocks are a lot more harsher, I guess, in general. So that was the sort of difficult part. So when I did see it, I remember I was thinking, like, on the day at the same time, oh, if I really did take the Spanish exam, I just know at the same time I could have probably done better, because sometimes I do a lot more well, a little bit under pressure, which I know sounds a bit weird, but sometimes when I know that this is definitely going to contribute to something, I try a lot more harder. So for me, it was kind of hard to also think about when you sort of think about the other scenario. Like, as much as I was happy with my grades, and I'm definitely grateful for it, but at the same time, I was also thinking, well, I could have done better in this. And even one of my teachers was speaking to me about it, saying that had I taken the exam, like, he had no doubt that I would probably get a 9. But
what about yourself, Kacy? What about yourself? If you were to sit the actual exams, from your own ability and your capabilities, what you mentioned earlier, do you feel that your results would have shone through, that these would have been your true marks and grades?
I think most definitely, I know I can speak on behalf of, like, me and a lot of my friends, and even my college as a whole. A lot of people didn't receive grades that represented their capability at all. There is no way I would have left my college with the grades that I received. The CCC grades.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Kacy. Are these the grades that were predicted by the school, or are we talking about the predicted ones last week?
Both. So I received CCC on results day, and then after the off-call overturn, the complete U-turn in grading, my college appointed grades were BBB.
Okay.
So although they're still great grades, they're still grades
just
that
one grade up,
I could be proud of, but I can't be proud of a grade that isn't mine, because I didn't sit the exam. I haven't been doing work since April, since Easter. My college stopped providing work, and everyone kind of just, like, grinded to a halt. And I think it had such a detrimental impact on all of us. Just the fact that we just weren't given the opportunity to shine. We weren't given the chance to show our capabilities and show what we can do. And for example, especially for A levels, it's a very well-known fact that in the last few months and few weeks of A levels is when it clicks. You can ask any A level student, any A level teacher, anyone who worked in an A level environment. You can be receiving U grades and D grades for the entirety of first year, and then it's not until May where you'll get a B grade or an A grade, and then you can leave A's and A stars, because it's such heavy content, and it's such a different environment to GCSEs, and there's so much more crammed in such a shorter space of time. It's a completely different playing field. And
it is. I mean, this is where I actually feel, if the grades were moderated grades, I mean, it is going back last week, what kind of things would have impacted on you? How would your future progress would have been hindered? And again, the crazy system, the crazy algorithm system, as well as the off-call giving the predictions. How, I'll ask Kacy this first. How do you feel that your future could have been hindered because of that?
Yeah, well, again, like I said before, you know, I was quite thankful and quite lucky that I still got an offer from my firm university choice, you know, my first place choice, and I'm very thankful because a lot of people didn't get that opportunity.
Right.
But I definitely feel that there's been so many people who have been hindered. You know, I have friends who are very capable students and consistently got good grades who now genuinely just don't have a place at university and are left having to do a resit or having to change their course entirely because these universities aren't able to give them the offers because they're either now oversubscribed because the off-call turn happened so late, or B, because even after the off-call U-turn, you know, they still haven't received the grades that are a good representation of them. You know, it's not fair that massive amounts of students have now been left, you know, high and dry on their own and sort of been, you know, like handed the shovel and dig yourself a hole kind of thing. Like, you know, we've given you what we can and you have to just sort it out. And, you know, it's again sort of reinforcing like the stigma that those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, maybe dumber, maybe stupider, aren't going to achieve as much, because it's severely impacted those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. Fair enough, the statistics have been like, yeah, well, 2% more people have received A grades, but those 2% aren't representations of those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. It's a representation of those from higher backgrounds or from elitist schools. You know, 38% more people, 38% of people were downgraded, and 38% doesn't sound like a massive number, but that's 38% of every A-level student across the country. That's not 38 students, that's 38% of thousands of students.
It's overall, yeah.
Exactly. And the reason they wanted to moderate grades was because 12% of more students would have passed. And I find it utterly amusing the fact that the government would rather have 38% more students downgraded than have 12% more students pass, because they don't want to give these people from these backgrounds more opportunity because it doesn't benefit them in any way. You know, they would rather benefit the students from Eton than from Newham, you know?
Yeah. Do you feel it's enough now that the government have been apologizing? You know, does that make up for anything?
An apology doesn't mean anything, you know. An apology, yeah, okay, cool. You know, you knew it was a bad decision when you made the decision. Realistically, there were so many people way before. I'm talking when exams were cancelled back in May. Like, there were so many people who spoke up against it. There were so many people who sort of gave their opinion and said, look, this is how it's going to work. Even when they told us that teachers were going to like grade us and that they would have to rank us, they would have to rank everyone from, you know, A to U, and then within the A's they have to say which is going to be the highest A. First of all, that is way too much pressure for a teacher. They should have never been put in the position where they had to rank every single one of their students that they've made a connection with over the 2 years, and like tell them, yeah, this is what that student would have got, because, you know, that's a complete unfair amount of pressure, you know. Exactly. And then even then, like, surpassing that, there were so many people who had spoken up against the government and said, look, this isn't going to work, it's not going to be fair, there's no way you can create a generalized algorithm that benefits and is fair to everyone across the country, yet they still implemented it. And even when they realized, oh wait, you know, Generation Z is going to fight back and protest, which we did, and then they did this off-call U-turn, you know, there's still so many students who have still been left disadvantaged and without uni placements. You know, places like Warwick and UCL and things like that are having to say, listen, we'll hold your place until next year. But then there's going to be less spaces for the students for the year before, which is the biggest cohort of A-level students to ever have existed in years. So it's created a effect.
Yeah. Anisah, the uncertainty and the lack of clarity from the Education Secretary and off-call, do you think there were contradictions or just plain confusions? Sorry. Okay, I can hear you.
I was just going to say, it was just both. There was confusion, there was uncertainty. Nothing was really ever clear. And then we always had the Education Secretary saying one thing, but then it felt like he was also saying another thing, maybe in writing. Like with his triple lock process, he was saying that you could appeal with mock grades. But then if you looked online, it's with off-call, when they withdrew their guidance, it seemed to act like, it looked sort of like that off-call was more really considering teacher assessed grades. So there was just that constant contradictions, even when GCSE results, when they had first told us there'll be teacher assessed grades, if you actually looked on the website, it said that we would get our center assessed grades this week, but then next week we would get our moderated grades. And it was like, what? And then he tried to clarify it, making it even more confusing, saying that no, next week you would get your official certification. And it was like, well, those things usually come in October. So, you know, what's going on? And I just remember, like, even my own school was confused. It was like, what?
Let's confuse everyone. Why not? You know,
exactly.
We're confused enough as it is. Let's, you know, I mean, the pandemic itself is enough to,
Literally,
you know, it is enough, you know, in itself to, you know, make us feel, you know, my goodness, you know, how do we get on each day? You know, to think about exams and the results, you know, first of all, not having to have the opportunity to sit any exams, but the government had all those months to come up with something sensible. Okay, what happened, Kacy? What, you know, tell us.
Honestly,
no, I think
honestly,
you girls, you know, will probably come up with something a bit more sensible of how it could go about, you know, than what we had to face.
I think I understand these are completely unprecedented circumstances. You know, I will never completely shame the government for like the choices they made, because as a country, as a nation, as you know, our a universe, you know, we've never experienced these kind of circumstances. You know, we haven't been riddled with a pandemic and had to close schools and cancel exams. I understand it was difficult, but honestly, COVID happening just highlighted the flaws in our education system that already stood. You know, it highlighted the lack of funding for schools in lower socioeconomic areas. You know, it highlighted, you know, there were so many students who weren't able to eat and weren't able to get food and weren't able to have accesses to resources because there wasn't this funding in these lower areas, you know. And even further than that, it's the idea of why do we sit linear exams after 2 years? Because now there's no precedent to give us grades. They haven't changed the education system for the better. If anything, the changes they have made, in my eyes, have only made the education system worse. And for example, the changes from 1 to 9, all that has done is change that you're now not giving an A, you're being given a 9. And they made such a big deal about this system, and realistically it was such a minuscule change. And for example, also a couple years ago when they removed AS levels, why would you remove an AS level when it would have completely cut down large amounts of stress? It would have given us so much more precedent, you know, and A-level students would have taken it so much more seriously. If you're being told this grade is a grade that you're going to have to sit with for the rest of your life, you know, students are going to take it seriously. Students are going to work hard. They're going to revise as if it's an important exam, because it is. Whereas mock grades, they're not standardized. And I've been told by several teachers to my face, don't worry about your mock. If you fail your mock, it's fine. Like, honestly, you have another exam to sit. And the fact that teachers are comfortable saying that to students is insane to me. Like, it's completely insane that we have a system where they're forced to give us exams that they don't even care about.
Wow. Anisah, how do you feel?
Honestly, I just thought this may have been one of the most biggest government blunders and failures I've ever seen, because I understand that, you know, coronavirus is a pandemic going on, but, you know, they had months to prepare. And then when this whole thing just happened, it was like they were making something new every day. I just remember I was looking at the news like, what the hell's today? What's new now? And it was like, it's just like they kept digging a hole. I was like, no, you got to stop now. I was like, too much.
I think there should be going on Zippo Circus.
Honestly, it really was. It was like, oh, we're suddenly going to do this. Oh, we're not definitely going to do a Scotland U-turn. Oh, never. But then it was like the steps that they were taking. You're like, no, you got to do it.
They're playing with your lives. They're playing.
They really were.
Young people's lives. You know,
it's like we're chess pieces in their game.
Honestly, I think it was the worst few days I've ever had in this whole lockdown thing. I think it may be the worst days of my lives, because like, I didn't even know what was going on half the time. Even though I was watching the news, even I was like really intently focusing on what's going on, it was just so confusing and so stressful to know, like, especially hearing all the personal stories with the algorithm downgrade. It just put me in such a negative mood. I honestly couldn't even at some point sleep at night thinking, oh, do you know what? Maybe I'm just going to get downgraded. Like, surely it must make sense I'm going to get downgraded. If I'm seeing loads of bright students getting downgraded for living in a certain postcode, then what have I got that's so special? Like, it was honestly really horrible when I was thinking about it. And I remember I was really stressing about it. Even I had friends who were all even talking about, do you know what? I'm not going to do well in this subject. Forget it. I've just failed. Like, everyone was in this sort of mindset and mood for a couple of days, literally. If you saw the text, it was just the way we were all saying the word fail so easily to each other. We were just so sure of the fact that, you know what, we're going to get downgraded. That's it. What do we do then? And and then especially with the appeals process, which they kept calling robust and everything, I just don't. As much as you defend it, it looked like it was just it was never a good appeals process in the first place. If you're actually unfairly disadvantaging grading these people, why would you need an appeals system? Maybe because your process before that wasn't even good in the first place. So what was
So you know, would you say this appeal system it doesn't really reflect your capabilities? You know, I mean, does it reflect capabilities?
God, no. I mean, to use a mock grade, mocks, even like Kacy was saying, not everyone is going to take a mock seriously. We look at it as a baseline. I mean, even I know that there are some mocks I haven't even done that well in because, again, I looked at it as a baseline. Like, these are the topics I need to improve. These are topics that I haven't done so well at. It's like, we don't take it as seriously as a real exam. We're much more relaxed. We're much more calmer, but we don't even revise as much for it. In fact, for a mock, it's usually you get told perhaps maybe like 1 or 2 weeks before, but usually you start trying to do a much more because you're still learning how to revise at the time. You're still learning how to manage your time. It's all really just a learning experience to prepare you for the final exam. And even with mocks, unfortunately, there are some people who actually do cheat on mocks. You know, they actually, you know, with cheating with mocks, sometimes if your mock, if you can find it online, unfortunately, some people do that. And so you kind of wonder, actually.
Yeah, so really, it doesn't really reflect
it's really poor reflection.
Capability, like, you know, what.
Completely, yeah. It really isn't. It's just there's two ways people can use mocks. It's just, it's not a very genuine reflection of your final grade.
Yeah. Definitely. Kacy, you know, this, what can I say? The mocks. Kacy, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I can't seem to hear Kacy. So, Anisah, this mock system, mock system that they're trying to predict, or they tried to predict by, you know, surely the government, you know, has to think. Hold on a moment. Mocks was a while ago. In the time after mocks, you know, there have been other grades and other capabilities you've gained, you know. So what, all of that gets taken out? You know, how does that work? You know, Kacy, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So I'll put that to you. You know, so how the fact that the mocks were going to be used, you know, to sort of like assess.
It's pure ignorance, honestly. I think it's the idea the government is completely oblivious and blind to the experiences of a teenager, you know. I feel like the government is so quick to dismiss the younger generation, especially recently, when realistically, if you look at sort of the proactivity with like activism, you know, down to like the protests for grades, the Black Lives Matter protests, even down to environmental protests, you know, if you look at the demographic, it's all young people, you know, it's all young people taking a stand, and the government are so quick to dismiss us as sort of like the phone generation, and, you know, dismiss us as like we don't really know what we're talking about. And that's such a problem because it removes our voice, and we are the only people who will be able to accurately sort of respond and display what we're going through. And I think the fact that the government is so comfortable sort of removing young people's voice, you know, it's quite scary. And honestly, it's quite scary, the idea that they're very comfortable sort of deciding what is going to happen to us without noticing the repercussions. You know, they were very comfortable giving hundreds of thousands of more students U grades and E grades, and they honestly didn't seem to care. And if we hadn't have protested, God knows, you know, what would have happened. If there hadn't have been the uproar that had happened, if we sort of just like took what we were given, God knows what would have happened as a response. So, you know, we probably would have still been stuck with the grades that we were given on results day, and so would have the GCSE students as well. And I think it's just upsetting. Honestly, it's unsettling as well.
Anisah, are you there? Yeah. So, I mean, today's news was that, you know, there has been a surge of students getting top GCSE grades this year. Do you see that as a true reflection, or, you know, what do you think about that? You know, and going forward, say, I mean, it's been a big increase from last year, and going forward into 2021. How do you see, you know, all this reflecting? You know, I mean, did you actually think? I mean, I didn't. To be honest with you, I honestly didn't think that we will have a surge of top grades, but we have. You know, what do you think has gone on there?
I know that it may be because it's sort of varied between schools. So, like with my school, to be honest, in particular, there was a lot of like, even with teacher predicted grades, a lot of students felt that it didn't really reflect their exact work, if that made sense. A lot of students felt that they may have been slightly downgraded as well. Like there was a lot of my, you know, a lot of my friends, when I was opening the results, they were sort of like, well, I don't really feel like this is my grade. I feel like I could have done better. And it was a little bit tense, I saw with the teachers when they were speaking with like parents and students. So with the surge in top grades, I don't know, with my school in particular, like top grades, there was quite a few students that got it. But to be honest, I think the top grades, and, you know, I know that with the moderation process, because obviously they still did run the algorithm, and any students who got higher, through the moderation process, rather than their center assessed grade from their teacher, I know that those grades have been applied. But I just definitely think it varies from school to school. So I know that there are some schools who may have been, you know, who may have done the whole process fairly, really thinking about their students, really thinking, you know what, this is their work right now. This is the grade I'm giving you, because I think this is an accurate reflection of what the work they've been doing as of this moment. Whereas there may have been some schools who may have been like, you know, I think my student's going to get this. Like, it could be a lot more hopeful. But then I also have to think about, in general, like, it's a much better outcome compared to what the algorithm would have done, because the algorithm was definitely disadvantaging particular communities, particular postcodes. I think this is the small sort of sacrifice we need to make, if that makes sense. This is a much better outcome than what would have happened before. So I understand that there's, you know, there is, you know, our results are much higher, and you know, I've just sort of learned to sort of accept that in general, because I think
come to celebrate with you.
Yes, definitely is. I think in general, though, compared to the algorithm, it was very obvious sort of from the start. It's really disadvantaging particular schools, particular communities, particular children. And it was like Kacy was saying, it was 35%. And, you know, at GCSE, that could have been much more higher, because a lot of students take GCSEs, obviously, more than A levels. So I think when you sort of compare the two outcomes, clearly that's a much better outcome.
Well, this algorithm system, those of you who are familiar with the Hunger Games movie, there's a lot of control, and you know, the whole movie depicts around the levels and the kind of you know, poverty area you're from, or to the rich area, wealthy area that you're from. I think Kacy might be a bit more familiar with that. Kacy, do you feel it was a bit like the Hunger Games here?
Yeah, I remember I had a conversation with my friend, you know, about how almost this is like a sort of modern depiction of the Hunger Games. You know, it's the idea of it's very obvious, it's made very obvious that those from like the lower and poorer districts in the book are severely disadvantaged during the Hunger Games, which I know sounds like quite a silly reference, but at the end of the day, those who are from, you know, more disadvantaged areas have ended up being more disadvantaged. But I guess like the benefit, you know, the spin-off of that is the idea of, you know, the Hunger Games ends in revolution. You know, we were a generation that was raised on books that depicted, you know, strong teen characters. You know, think of like the Hunger Games, Maze Runner, any kind of book like that we sort of thrived on as children and as teenagers. You know, they all sort of depict the same storyline. You know, it was always like a strong teenage character that is the forefront of revolution, and I think that's such a good thing, because that's why we've become such an outward spoken generation. You know, we've become a generation that's ready to, you know, stand outside Houses of Parliament and shout however many slurs at Boris Johnson to get our point across. You know, we're the generation that overnight will make hundreds of signs and hundreds of posts and support a cause that needs to be supported. And I think it's brilliant. I love it.
Well, do you know what I think? I think the government were due to get a stampede of students coming over them, and they realize their necks are on the line. They better think of something quick. Hence the U-turn just 2 days ago, because there are people that I know, even students who have graduated, saying, yes, I will go and join that stampede of students. You know, what is going on? You know, I mean, can you imagine if I'll just touch upon that my daughter graduated this year, and that's another system where they had to do online examinations, and there was that fear of, how will it reflect? You know, will my grades be, you know, how it would have been if I went and sat an exam in a room, then doing it from home, you know, with like independently, privately studying and revising, you know, all sorts of things would be going around their heads, you know. So, you know, the university students had to sit online examinations away from there, you know, and that's just another topic altogether. But do you see how, you know, the different things the government are coming up with, not knowing what will work, how it will reflect, you know, and it's bad enough in this pandemic that, you know, we've all got to sort of like get by every day, you know, as it is, as I mentioned before. But what is going on? You know, what is going on? I mean, the government decides one thing, 2 days. We've never had that. So do you, okay, on that note, do you feel, Kacy, that maybe next year they need to start preparing themselves now? Because if we were to have a worse situation, God forbid, than this pandemic, should they start planning and preparing now of sensible things?
I think one thing I would say is not only the government, but students need to be sort of more prepared and be planning now as if there is going to be a second wave. And I'm not talking a second wave of like a couple more months inside. I'm talking, you know, a long-standing home education, because at the end of the day, you need to be at home, you know, creating portfolios of your work, you know, sitting assessments by yourself under exam conditions as if you would be preparing for your exams. And you need to be creating masses of amounts of precedent, so then you can achieve the grade and be given the grade or appointed the grade, no matter how it works in the future, you know, that you deserve. Because at the end of the day, that you don't want a second cohort of students being put at disadvantage. And honestly, with the government, they need to, in my eyes, completely refurbish the whole education system, you know, whether that means, you know, starting a new grade point average kind of system like they do in America, for example, because I think we're so quick to try and compete with other countries, you know, make our exams harder. Oh, we have linear exams now, like our students are doing linear exams and they're so much more difficult, and you know, we're just better, you know. But at the end of the day, they're not giving their students the resources or the funding or the support to sit these exams, and they're leaving themselves without precedent to give these students the grades when things like this do happen. Global pandemics do happen, and students can't sit mocks, students can't sit, you know, their final linear exams.
I
think if there was a student, you know, say exams weren't cancelled and the day before their exam they were hit by a car, yeah, and they can't sit any of their exams, what kind of response would they have for that student? Would they give them U grades? Would they give them their predicted grades? Would they give them their mock grades? This it's not open information for students, you know. It's not.
No.
All we know is we hear, oh, extenuating circumstance, you know, extenuating circumstance for students, but no one really knows what that means. No one, they didn't talk about the appeal process in much detail. They didn't talk about extenuating circumstances in detail. They just don't give the support that's necessary for students, especially for, you know, college and like higher GCSE students. A lot of them have so many other things that they need to be concerned about. You know, I have so many friends who are concerned about whether they're going to have enough money to put food on the table because everyone's losing their job for COVID. You know, why are those same students having to then stress? Okay, but what if I don't get into uni next year? What if my student loan doesn't get approved?
What kind of support are you aware of that you can, you know, receive? You know.
Yeah, exactly. There is very little support. Any support that I received had access to was purely select teachers who gave me that support, that took time out of their day to call me, you know, call me personally and say, look, this is what you need to know. You know, let me set up a Zoom call for a couple students who I know need support, who I know need help, who need comforting, even if it's not, you know, like, oh, this is the lesson, you know. So many young people find comfort in school. So many young people find comfort in the things that are accessible at school. You know, I know my college has an on student counselor, has 2 counselors, and you know, that's open access to any student, and that was taken away after COVID happened, and there were so many people who were then sort of left struggling and, you know, left with their own thoughts and they didn't have that support that was previously there. They were taken away from their friends, they were taken away from their teachers, they were taken away from any sort of mental health support, and then they were told, oh, you're not going to sit exams, but don't worry, we'll sort it, we'll cover it for you, you know. And then given
what
no
about
information
what about your school, Anisah? What kind of support do you feel you received, or you could have received, for that matter?
To tell you the truth, actually, as soon as lockdown was announced, they did give us classwork for 2 weeks because obviously the uncertainty over our exams going to be cancelled or not, because, you know, the government even took long to actually announce to us if our exams were going to be like cancelled or not. So after our exams were cancelled, I hadn't actually heard much from my school. So like I really didn't hear anything, to tell you the truth. But then they did do this 2-week program at one point to sort of support us with our mental health and well-being, to try and get us into activities to try and engage us more, because like Kacy was even saying, a lot of people look at school as a haven, a place where we socialize, you know, because you know, we go there sort of every day. It's like a really big drastic change that sort of just came into your life out sort of nowhere. But then when it came closer to results, actually, particularly, like, that is when my school sort of went MIA. Like, you couldn't really, it was like at that time a lot of students had questions, and they were sort of overloading our school with questions, asking them, you know, what's going on right now. I'm seeing the news, and you know, there's something going on. Like, what is going on? Like, are our results going to be affected? You know, did I get a good predicted grade? Or please, you know, can you predict me this grade, because, you know, I've been working towards this and that. It just really went messy from that whole time. I guess that's when our school just literally stopped all communication with students, and I think that was definitely quite hard, because a lot of people obviously wanted answers from our school, and it was just you know, out of nowhere, really. That's when they just went, you know, we can't really speak to students right now. And I think that was definitely very difficult for a lot of us to take on.
So you know, have you Anisah, have you got a place for yourself to the college or the sixth form that, you know, you had as your first choice? Have you got your place secured?
So I did an unconditional offer. So I literally only applied to my own school sixth form. So you know, I did meet the target grades for it. So, and in general, with the unconditional offer, essentially what it was any grades I sort of achieve, because they kind of had high hopes anyway. It was basically like, even if I do sort of full, and you know, or sort of maybe underperform in one exam or not, I shouldn't exactly lose my place, if that makes sense.
Right.
So
okay.
I was sort of guaranteed a place in my sixth form already.
Okay.
But what was difficult was because prior, I guess, to this, I was actually accepted into this program. It was called an Imperial Pathways to Medicine program, and I applied with my predicted grades, which some of them were obviously maybe a little bit significantly higher than my results.
Okay.
So, you know,
hold on.
that
Predicted grades again. Was that the off-call or the schools?
That was so the before, I guess, essentially the whole lockdown.
Okay.
What I thought, you know, I might get, I guess, as a baseline, what they first predicted me before the central assessed grades.
Yeah.
So I actually did apply with my predicted grades, saying that I would get 3 8s in science, since that was what I was told. But obviously now one of them was a bit, you know, what I got 2 8s and then 1 7 for those sciences. So it's a lot more different now. So they even asked me about it today, actually, that program, and they were like, oh, you know, that's okay. I understand that there's a lot of uncertainty over like these grades and stuff like that. It's, you know, it's a lot more difficult, but it definitely did feel a bit weird, I guess, because it didn't really matter to us.
I mean, Kacy, do you have your first choice place for the university?
Yeah, I'm very thankful into the fact that my university was very lenient. I didn't even.
Sorry, Kacy. I didn't hear you. So the question was, have you managed, or did you manage to get your first place, first choice of the university?
Yeah, I did. I'm very thankful because my university was very lenient, even before like off course. So I actually needed AAB to get onto my course, and even after the U-turn of off call and my grades going up, I still hadn't achieved the grades that realistically I could have achieved if I'd sat the exams. But my university still said, look, if we've given you a place based on the off-call grades, we're still going to honor that place. And I think most students, any student who was given like an offer, their place was honored at this university. So I get to go on to do, I'm doing English literature and history joint honors. But I know a lot of people weren't privileged enough to be in that position. Like I know certain students who even had their university place taken away because after sort of everything that happened, they said, well, listen, now we've got students with different grades, you know, we can't honor a place that you can't get, you know. And I think it was just so unfair to a lot of people.
So Anisah, if you were to ask for any bit of advice from Kacy, who's you know, who in a similar boat as yourself, but you know, she's on A levels now, and thinking ahead of any future, you know, pandemics or unforeseen circumstances, you know, what would you ask, you know, as a peer person? What would you ask Kacy? Any tips? Any advice? Can you hear me, Anisah?
Yeah. I would definitely ask about the whole applying to universities process, because that just really sounded traumatic in general. Like, should I be applying for maybe certain universities as a backup, or should I just be really thinking on one set of group of universities?
I think when you do go to college, they do give you a lot more information about, you know, UCAS and everything like that, which is great. And UCAS themselves do provide like quite a lot of information. If you go on YouTube, they have their channel where they provide a lot of information about the application process. But even then, you know, you're given fluctuated advice from different people. One piece of advice that I would definitely give now as a student who's been through it is a lot of teachers say, you know, aim for like one really high state university and then like 2 like middle universities that you could like most likely get into, and then 2 low grade universities, because you get 5 options, right? I think now what I would say is I definitely think you should apply for universities that you want to go to. You know, apply if you want to apply to King's and Cambridge and UCL and LSE, apply for them. You know, apply for those universities, because there are these other options that are put in place. You know, there's adjustment and there's clearing where you can go into universities if you do happen to miss your grades, you know. And I think I wish I knew that so much sooner, because I very much limited, you know, the university I could go to, because, you know, I applied for Oxford. So I was like, yeah, this is my one great university. Then I applied for Royal Holloway, and then I applied for a couple other universities that didn't need high grades at all, you know, and there's no problem whatsoever with wanting to go to those universities at all. But I think one thing, if you have high expectations for yourself and you want to go to these high state universities and you know you're capable of doing so, then absolutely do so, and don't let anyone hold you back, because there is nothing that says that you can't apply for 5 Russell Group universities. There is nothing that says that. And honestly, you just need to, you know, as long as you're working hard for something, then you're working hard for it. Honestly, you spoke about medicine before, so I don't know if you wanted to go into like medicine or anything, but so for medicine, medical schools, you have to put in your application a little bit earlier, like you do for Oxbridge. So it usually has to be in by October, so your personal statement has to be done on that. I, for some reason, didn't know anything about this, and you know, I did my personal statement entire UCAS in like 4 days, which was a really bad move. But I think if you know what you want to do and where you want to go, start preparing as soon as you can. You know, first year of college, start getting involved in like activities, go to lectures. Obviously, it's slightly different now because of COVID, but you know, go to lectures of things that you're interested in. Read books, read other people's personal statements. You know, ask older students like, what did you do? Like, what do you know? And don't be shy to do so, because honestly, everyone is so willing to give advice at this point, because we're all in the same boat.
Well, we have Kacy, our very own careers advisor, here with us today. It's brilliant. Did you get all of that, Anisah? It's just you know, I mean, when you hear it from a student who's actually gone through that path, you know, it makes sense, because honestly, you know, because they were in it and they will know what they're talking about. So you know, that's brilliant. We're coming to the end of our show almost, ladies, but what I do want to say is, you know, whatever you decide to do, best of luck in everything that you do. And I do want to say well done for hanging in there, and you know, you achieved inside your mind, you know, you've achieved whatever you could have, and it's through no fault of your own that, you know, we are in this situation. But you know, it to me it looks like your grades have given some justice, and those who know you, the teachers who know you, have, you know, somehow seen, you know, through everything, that no, you know, this is the fair grade, this is your capabilities, and I feel that both you girls, you know, are quite happy with the grades you've received, and I just hope that you know, you do well and excel in whatever you do. And before I go, is there any last few words, Anisah, you know, if you could, if you want to share with everyone of our viewers, just last few words before we leave?
I guess something that I could, I think I've definitely learned from this whole process that mocks are really important. I don't think I really learned much from this whole process, honestly. My brother was asking me that as well recently the other day, and I was just like, well, you know, unfortunately, there are in so many ways that we as young people can be disadvantaged, but I think also through this time, young people have also showed a lot more unity, showing that, you know, we are very capable individuals, you know. In fact, it's like, even I heard in the protest, you know, a lot of the students were going, they're the next generation of voters, and that's something the government has been ignoring completely. This is the next generation of voters. These are the people who are going to be definitely a lot more politically active now. I think actually what the government's done has made them more politically active. Exactly, completely,
Brilliant. Okay, Kacy, last few words before we go.
Yeah, you know, along the lines of the same thing, you know, the government have managed to anger entire cohort of students who are now legally allowed to vote. You know, that's on them. You know, the next general elections coming up, just the idea of, you know, keep yourself up to date with politics. You know, everything's affecting us, and a lot of people sort of tune out to it. Don't tune out to it. Listen to it. See what effect it's having on you, and then, you know, do your research into it. Realize that you can make a change, and you can vote, and you can go to protests, and you can stand up for honestly what you deserve as a young person.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, girls, for coming on my show and expressing and sharing your grades with us today. And again, I wish you both very well, and I hope to speak to you girls again soon. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so here we have it. Mad times of mad times. What we have learned is that, do not take your mocks for granted. Do not take any tests for granted. Do your best in any test or any exam that you have along the way for your education. And what it's teaching us is, we've just heard from a couple of the students, is that, if this is how it's showing by that, now you are going to get predicted by, a test that you have done like years and years ago. If that's how it is, let's prepare ourselves as students, and let's hope that the government, will start planning ahead with a few sensible ways of, coming up with systems of how they can go about getting the fair grades out there, not only for themselves, but more so for those students. And what I would like to say is I wish every one of you good luck, and hope you've achieved the grades you have wished for to the best of your abilities. But also bear in mind, if those of you who are applying for universities, get in touch with your admissions department. If you haven't got the grades you need, speak to the admissions, speak to the relevant people, try and get some careers advice guidance to help you through with this. It's been confusing times for us all, and we just hope in future that we have that eased down. And on that note, thank you very much again for joining me here, SABIA KHATUN, on Vodcasts, and do share with us anything else that you would like to have on this talk show. Thank you.